So this is my sewing machine. It's just a very basic sewing machine that I use for paper crafting. It has straight stitches and zigzag, and it does actually have a stretch stitch, but this is the only sewing machine I tend to use for my paper crafting. It's not a very expensive one. I actually started with an even more basic one, and when that eventually died, I bought this. So you can get some inexpensive sewing machines and just keep it for paper crafting. If you use your sewing machine for paper crafting and for fabric, paper crafting blunts your needle. So you just need to remember to keep a paper crafting needle and a needle for stitching fabric. But other than that, it applies to the same, it's used in the same way. So you have two threads. You have a top thread and you have a bottom thread. I'll show you in a later video, if you want, how to put your thread onto this spool. We call this a spool or a bobbin or a shuttle, depending where you live. That's what we call it. And you wind some of your colour onto here using the sewing machine's bobbin winder. It's important to wind this on your sewing machine and not try and wind it by hand, because it's put on in a certain way and a certain tension. So it's important that you do learn how to wind your own spools on this here. On my machine it's here, sometimes it's on the side, but I'll show you that in a different video. So the two threads join together and interlink. The top thread comes down to the fabric, hooks onto the bottom thread, and the join is exactly in the middle of the fabric. So that's how your machine is working. It's taking the top thread, it's interlinking with the bottom thread and making a join exactly in the fabric. Sometimes we find it goes all loopy, and that's to do with tension, and I'll talk about that as we go on. But basically that's what we're doing. We're using a top thread and a bottom thread to join in the middle of the fabric or the paper. So the first thing to do is to think about how to thread up. So with the top thread, you usually put your thread on the thread holding, excuse me, nearest the needle. And then we have to take it through some tension discs. Now, I used to teach sewing at school, and we used to say it makes a capital N shape because you have to go under this hook here. Sometimes this hook can be round the back, through the tension discs, back up to this thing here, which is the most important thing, hook round that and down. So I've actually made a capital N shape. You can't see it because the thread's gone into those slots, but I've made a capital N shape. This thing here is called the take-up lever because it takes the thread up and down. And that's what's important, because as it goes down, it catches the bottom thread and then comes back up again to form a new stitch. So that's called your take-up lever. I then have another hook, usually to the side of my needle here, and then you thread your needle. Most machines thread front to back. Some do thread side to side, and it's important you know that for your type of machine. When you're putting a new needle in, there is one part of the needle shank at the top that is flat, and it's important that you know if that goes flat to the back or flat to the side. Mine goes flat to the back. I'll just show you which has got the flat side. Okay, so you can see there's a flat side and a curved side. So mine goes flat to the back. So I'm going to put that in and fasten it up. You don't need to change that unless you break it or you feel it is really blunt, or if you want to switch to sewing fabric. My particular sewing machine has a needle threader, so I just bring that down, I hook my thread underneath there. Not every machine has a needle threader, so it's just this one happens to have, which is very handy. It's a bit difficult to do when I'm leaning over to the side. I'll do that in a minute. So that is how to do the top thread. Let's move on to the bottom.